Welcome to War Bias. I'm your host, General Biography. Today, we're going to explore one of the most pivotal battles in medieval history, the Battle of Agincourt, fought on October 25, 1405. This legendary clash between the English and French armies has been immortalized in literature, art, and film. But what were the events that led to this fateful day? The story begins in the early 15th century, when the 100 Years' War between England and France was still raging. The English monarchy under King Henry V had long claimed a right to the French throne, which they believed was rightfully theirs through their ancestor Edward III. This dynastic dispute had been simmering for decades, with periods of relative calm punctuated by outbreaks of violence. In 1414, King Henry V began to make preparations for a major invasion of France, assembling a large army of soldiers, archers, and men-at-arms at Southampton. The English king was determined to press his claim to the French throne, and he saw an opportunity to do so while the French monarchy was weakened by internal divisions. As the English invasion force set sail from Southampton in August 1405, bound for the port city of Harfleur on the northern coast of France, they were met with fierce resistance. The French garrison at Harfleur, led by the Sieur de Gaucourt, put up a spirited defense, but ultimately, the English captured the city on September 22, 1415. The fall of Harfleur was a significant blow to the French, and it gave the English a crucial foothold in Normandy. King Henry V then began his march towards the interior of France, intent on claiming the throne that he believed was his birthright. The English army, however, was not without its challenges. They faced treacherous terrain, inclement weather, and the ever-present threat of French resistance. Meanwhile, the French monarchy, under King Charles VI, was mobilizing its own forces to counter the English invasion. The French king, aware of the English advance, had begun to assemble a large army from across France, drawing on the nobility and militia from regions such as Picardy, Normandy, and the Ile-de-France. As the two armies converged near the village of Agincourt, in the heart of the Pas-de-Calais region, the stage was set for a clash that would decide the fate of empires. The English army, exhausted and depleted from their long march, had been reduced to approximately 6,000 men, including archers, men-at-arms, and other soldiers. The French army, on the other hand, was much larger, with estimates suggesting that they had assembled a force of between 20,000 to 30,000 men. The landscape itself played a significant role in the events leading up to the battle. The muddy fields, dense forests, and narrow roads of the Pas-de-Calais region would all contribute to the chaos and confusion that characterized the Battle of Agincourt. The English army, with its longbowmen and men-at-arms, was well suited to the terrain, while the French army, with its heavily armored knights and nobles, was more cumbersome and less adaptable. As we've seen, the events leading up to the Battle of Agincourt were marked by strategic maneuvering, logistical challenges, and an unyielding commitment to conquest. The Battle of Agincourt took place on October 25, 1415, in the muddy fields and dense forests of the Pas-de-Calais region. The English army, led by King Henry V, was vastly outnumbered, with approximately 6,000 men, including archers, men-at-arms, and other soldiers. The French army, on the other hand, had assembled a force of between 20,000 to 30,000 men, drawn from the nobility and militia of regions such as Picardy, Normandy, and the Ile-de-France. Despite being outnumbered, the English army was well suited to the terrain. The longbowmen, with their powerful bows and arrows, were able to fire from a distance, raining down a hail of projectiles on the French knights and men-at-arms. The men-at-arms, armed with swords, shields, and poleaxes, formed a dense line, protecting the archers and presenting a wall of steel to the French cavalry. The French army, with its heavily armored knights and nobles, was more cumbersome and less adaptable. The muddy fields and narrow roads of the Pas-de-Calais region made it difficult for the French cavalry to maneuver, and the English longbowmen took full advantage of this. As the French knights charged, they were met with a withering barrage of arrows, which cut down horse and rider alike. One of the most significant factors in the English victory was the use of stakes, which were driven into the ground to protect the archers from cavalry charges. The stakes, often referred to as palings, formed a barrier that prevented the French knights from reaching the English lines. This clever tactic allowed the English archers to fire safely while also protecting them from the French cavalry. The battle was fierce and intense, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. However, the English army held its ground, thanks to the bravery of its soldiers and the tactical genius of King Henry V. As the day wore on, the French army began to falter, and eventually they were forced to retreat. The aftermath of the battle was brutal, with many French prisoners being executed or ransomed. The English army, on the other hand, had emerged victorious despite being vastly outnumbered. The Battle of Agincourt was a crushing defeat for the French monarchy, and it would have far-reaching consequences for the course of the 100 Years' War. In conclusion, the Battle of Agincourt was a masterpiece of medieval warfare, showcasing the tactical genius of King Henry V and the unyielding bravery of his soldiers. The use of longbowmen, men-at-arms, and stakes allowed the English army to overcome the odds and emerge victorious, despite being vastly outnumbered. In the immediate aftermath of the battle, the French army was left in disarray, with thousands of soldiers killed or wounded. The English army, on the other hand, had emerged victorious, but not without significant losses. King Henry V, aware of the importance of securing his gains, set about consolidating his position in France. He began by capturing key towns and cities, including Harfleur and Rouen, which would serve as vital bases for future operations. The French monarchy, reeling from the defeat, was plunged into a period of crisis and instability. King Charles VI, already struggling with mental health issues, was unable to respond effectively to the English challenge. The Dauphin, Charles VII, who would eventually succeed his father, was still a minor and unable to exert significant influence. This power vacuum allowed the English to make further gains in France as they exploited the divisions within the French nobility. One of the most significant consequences of the Battle of Agincourt was the Treaty of Troyes, signed in 1420. This treaty, negotiated between King Henry V and King Charles VI, recognized Henry as the heir to the French throne and betrothed him to Charles's daughter, Catherine. The treaty effectively disinherited the Dauphin, Charles VII, and paved the way for English dominance in France. However, the Treaty of Troyes was not without its challenges. Many French nobles refused to recognize English authority, and the Dauphin, Charles VII, continued to resist English rule. The war would drag on for another 2 decades, with the English facing significant challenges in maintaining their control over France. Despite these challenges, the legend of King Henry V as a great warrior and leader was cemented by his victory at Agincourt. His reputation as a brilliant tactician and a brave soldier was celebrated throughout Europe, and he became a hero to the English people. The battle itself was seen as a testament to English valor and a demonstration of the effectiveness of the longbow, which would remain a key component of English armies for centuries to come. In conclusion, the aftermath of the Battle of Agincourt was marked by significant consequences for both the French monarchy and the English claim to the throne. The English victory paved the way for further gains in France, but also created new challenges as they sought to maintain their control over the country. The legend of King Henry V as a great warrior and leader was cemented by his victory, and his reputation would endure for centuries to come. As we bring our exploration of the Battle of Agincourt to a close, we are reminded of the enduring impact of this pivotal battle on European history. That's all for today's War Bios. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I'm General Biography reminding you to keep marching toward victory.